What's happening, y'all? Welcome inside the Fantasy Stock Exchange. Danny and Bush coming at you with another rankings episode. We saw all your feedback. We saw how you guys said in the comments we like multiple perspectives on the ranking show, yada, yada, yada. So here we are, both of us on the show. As you can tell, I'm a little bit sick right now. I said that on the start sit episode as well, but I'm powering through. Danny, how you doing?
Doing well, doing well. Yeah, you mentioned you're sick. The viewers, the first time seeing me this week because obviously I couldn't make the waiver show. A little feedback on that, guys. No, I didn't go missing for a few days. I actually had a big accounting midterm that I had to do, but we're back. We're ready. We're ready to go for Sunday football and talk about our rankings. But before we do that, I mean, we're actually recording this upon the news of the Le'Veon Bell signing with the Chiefs. So I know we both kind of want to get into that. What are your instant thoughts on that signing?
Okay, so as a CEH owner, and I do have CEH in the league I care most about, I took him 6th overall, which much to the dismay of much of my league mates. This, to me, for CEH, I've seen reactions on both sides of the spectrum on Twitter and things like that. I've seen people say this doesn't affect CEH at all, which is completely not true. And I've seen people say, oh, CEH is dead. Le'Veon Bell is going to take over the backfield at some point in this season. My thoughts are, I think if you have CEH like me, do not sell him. Don't sell him. Because one, Le'Veon Bell has to hit 5 straight positive COVID tests, I believe, or negative COVID tests, sorry, before he can actually get into the building. So not only will you have him this week, you might have him next week as well in terms of a full workload CEH. Second of all, CEH didn't have the top 5 upside we thought he did because they do so much in the red zone that they're not just going to hand this guy the ball and get a million touchdowns on the season. So yes, Le'Veon Bell probably hurts CEH on the goal line. He'll probably get more goal line looks than a guy like Darrell Williams would have. But I still think CEH, his upside's no longer top 5, but I think he's still a back-end RB1. That's just my opinion on it. We'll see how it shakes out. I don't think Le'Veon Bell is coming in to split this backfield 50-50. I don't even think he's coming in to split this backfield 60-40. I think Le'Veon Bell is going to get a 10 to 12 like carry type role, maybe a couple receptions a game. But this is still CEH's backfield. Kareem Hunt had a 65% opportunity share the year that his rookie year when he went off, 65%. So if CEH can maintain that, and remember, Kareem Hunt did that with Alex Smith and not Patrick Mahomes. So the offense is obviously better now. I still think CEH is a top 12 running back. Barely, but I still think he is.
Yeah, no, I fully agree there again. Obviously, this limits his ceiling. He's not just going to be a bell cow, every down running back that we were kind of seeing at the early portion of the season. He doesn't have that top 5 upside.
This might even help his efficiency, to be honest.
I agree.
Not getting a bunch of dirty carries or whatever, because they're going to give those to Bell because one, Bell is just bigger and he's more experienced running in between the tackles and stuff. So they might take the dirty 3rd and 1s away from CEH, which again, 3rd and 1, what are your chances of getting a huge fantasy play? Probably not that high because the defense usually knows you're going to run.
The reason why it limits his upside for me is mostly due to the touchdown upside, in my opinion, as you're kind of prefacing before. The problem with it is that we saw Hilaire was kind of inefficient on the goal line, whereas Le'Veon Bell, I mean, he wasn't inefficient, obviously, on the Jets, but I don't think you can take anybody's efficiencies on the Jets and actually look at them with face value. So overall, I mean, I do think he can chip into a little bit of that red zone work, but ultimately here, you're still getting a pass catching running back that should still have a 15 type touch workload per game in CEH. So yeah, it does limit his ceiling. He's not going to be a top 5 running back that I once thought he could be, but talking about RB10, RB12, around their area, as you were kind of prefacing, I do agree with that. And talking about Le'Veon Bell, obviously, I mean, his touch workload is going to go completely down. We know this. First of all, yeah, no, exactly. Second of all, obviously his touch workload compared to the Jets isn't going to be there, but at the same time, give me 10 touches on the Chiefs as opposed to 25 touches on the Jets, to be quite honest. I mean, that's just going to be how it rolls in terms of touchdown upside, in terms of receiving work and everything. I do think that Le'Veon Bell could ultimately be a good 35-40% snap guy behind CEH. I think that's ultimately plausible. Again, the same people that are overreacting and tanking CEH in their rankings were the same people who said the exact same thing when Leonard Fournette signed with your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So
exactly. And we saw with the Leonard Fournette signing, it kicked Ronald Jones in the ass. And Ronald Jones has played excellent ever since that happened. Obviously, that happened before the season. So the whole season is the sample size. But maybe CEH takes it up a notch with the signing of Le'Veon Bell. Maybe he's and one thing I vehemently disagree with is they're doing this because they're disappointed in CEH or they're not buying into their 1st round pick. No, they're doing this because it's a COVID season. They need depth. Running back's a position that gets often injured. It's always good to have depth. We don't actually have the contract details of Le'Veon Bell yet, but I'd imagine he signed for very cheap. And when you have an opportunity to bring in a guy like Le'Veon Bell, former All-Pro running back for very cheap to give yourself some depth behind your young running back, you're going to do it from a real-life NFL perspective.
Absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised if we're seeing like a 1 year, $3.5 million type deal, like nothing crazy. And the reason why the Chiefs signed him wasn't because they were disappointed in CEH. It's because, as you mentioned, a former all-pro talented type running back hit the open market to be able to be signed for cheap. Any team would be stupid not to exploit that type of option. That's just my thought on that. And aside from that, are you just ready to hit this intro or we get going?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Okay.
Great. Before we get into the actual rankings of the episode, we got to tell you about Jock Market, our good friends over there. They're the new way to play daily fantasy. Jock Market is where daily fantasy sports become a stock exchange, and basically how it works is each NFL Sunday or before any primetime game, there's an IPO just like the regular stock market where you can bid on your favorite players based on how well you think they're going to perform in fantasy that week. Obviously, for myself and Danny in Canada, we can't actually play with real money yet, but if you can play with real money, you could get a guy like Lamar Jackson for $15 a share. If he performs well in the first half or whatever, you want to sell him off at halftime for $25 a share, then you just made a $10 profit on each share of Lamar Jackson that you have. Obviously, using this method, you can make money every hour, every minute, every second of every game. If someone breaks off a big run, you could sell them immediately and cash out. Or if you want to just hold a guy for the full game, maybe you just think he's going to have a monster fantasy game, then you can do that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about the app and Jock Market again, daily contests are live for the NFL, NBA, and PGA, as well. So, just in general, take control of your fantasy sports experience. Right now is the easiest time to play in free contracts or contests where you can stack chips like us if you're in Canada, or heck, if you're in the States, you're able to put a little money in. I mean, you could make easy money off of this app. So, right now, download in the App Store. The Android is actually coming very soon. So, super pumped about Jock Market, as you guys know this far on the channel. But yeah, looking at our rankings thus far, you can kind of see our guys that we're higher on. Maybe you could use that and apply it to your Jock Market experience. So definitely go check out Jock Market.
Awesome. All right. So speaking of our rankings, let's get to the quarterbacks on the screen right now. You'll see both of our quarterback rankings, and that's versus ECR, which means expert consensus ranking. It's the Fantasy Pros, the website. They take a poll of a bunch of experts around the industry and create a consensus rankings list based on that. And you can go there and check out your favorite experts and all that kind of stuff. But this is me and Danny's rankings versus what the experts think. And starting off at the quarterback position, who's someone that you have higher than ECR?
Well, I actually have Cam Newton. Now, this is pending, obviously, if the game is being played. Because, again, if the game isn't played, obviously he's not going to be in my top 7 right now. But talking about Cam Newton, if the game is played, he's got a nice matchup going up against the Denver pass defenses that have actually allowed have actually been one of the worst teams against the quarterback position. And just talking about Cam, if he is playing in a game, to me, he's just a top 8 quarterback option. Looking at what Josh Allen brings, for example, the rushing type quarterbacks. I mean, again, you're talking about Josh Allen, you're talking about Kyler Murray, you're talking about Lamar Jackson. A guy like that and a guy like Cam Newton with that ultimate ceiling /floor that he provides with the rushing game is always going to provide value. Again, his floor to me weekly is at least 15, 16 points. And then once you build on the passing numbers, I mean, to me, for example, he's averaging 23.5 fantasy points per game thus far this year. There's no reason to have him outside the top 10, which is where ECR currently has him. They have him at 11. The only plausible reason they could even have him at 11, in my opinion, is because they're counting that the game might get canceled. But if he plays, if he's ready to suit, fire him up as a top 8 quarterback option. Cam Newton, I love him. +4 according to my rankings compared to ECR.
Yeah, I have him actually in the exact same spot. I have my quarterback 7 as well. I think so. The reason Danny's saying we don't know if this game is going to get played is because the Patriots actually had another person test positive on Friday, the day that we're recording this. So, I mean, we're going to have to monitor this one going forward. I honestly have no idea what they're going to do because if they push this game back, this will be the second time they've pushed this game back. And I'm honestly like, maybe they'll take out they already canceled the Pro Bowl. I saw that news already, but I have no idea what they're going to do. Either way, Cam Newton, if he plays, is going to be a solid fantasy option. Another guy that I think is better than ECR is Andy Dalton on this week. I think in general, Andy Dalton is a guy that's going to be a top 15 quarterback, whether we like it or not. And yes, he downgrades the offense. You're a Cowboys fan. You know this. Yeah. He's not as good as Dak Prescott. but the weapons he has are going to allow him to be much more fantasy relevant than he's ever been in Cincinnati. And even in his days in Cincinnati, he's had seasons where he was top 15, weekly kind of streaming quarterback type. And the trio of receivers plus Dalton Schultz and Zeke Elliott and Tony Pollard in the passing game make this guy a top 15 quarterback. And I have him currently right now at quarterback 12. And I think going up against the Cardinals secondary, which, I mean, hasn't been overly great, Patrick Peterson having a bit of a down season, I think the Cowboys should be able to put up a lot of points in this one. And I can't remember who tweeted this out. It was either Hayden Winks or Ian Hartz for RotoWorld or PFF, but they said this is going to be the highest paced game of the week. So there's going to be a lot of points, a lot of plays, all that kind of stuff run in this one. It should be a lot of opportunity for Dalton to score a lot of fantasy points.
Agreed. I mean, talking about that game initially, first of all, Andy Dalton, obviously, as many Cowboys fans don't want to admit, is not as good as Dak. I mean, there's Cowboys fans on Twitter that somehow think Dalton is better. Like, get out of my mentions, first of all. Second of all, Dalton's still a top 15 quarterback. I have him as a quarterback 14 on the week. Again, when you're looking at that array of weapons that he has, that game, as you mentioned, in terms of pace against the Arizona Cardinals, I mean, there's just going to be a lot of points put up in this game, especially given how much the defenses on both sides have really struggled thus far. So, I mean, if you're talking about it, Andy Dalton's got CeeDee Lamb to throw to, Amari Cooper to throw to, Michael Gallup, Zeke Elliott, Dalton Schultz, as you mentioned, he should instantly be a top 15 quarterback option. Not going to be a top 3 quarterback like Dak was for the first 4 weeks of the season, or first 5 weeks. Sorry, math's bad. But he's still going to be a fine streamable option in my opinion. So yeah, I definitely agree there. You have him at 12. I have him at 14. We're both in that same kind of vicinity. Talking about my next guy though, it's a guy that's kind of been disrespected mostly by the fantasy community thus far. And I don't know why, to be honest, because ever since he's gotten to his new team in 2019, he has been an elite quarterback. And we're talking about Ryan Tannehill, quarterback from the Tennessee Titans. He's currently my quarterback 9 on the week. Again, the ECR kind of has him at 12 right now. Just talking about Ryan Tannehill. Yes, the Houston defense isn't as open or susceptible against the pass as we thought going into the season initially. But I mean, it doesn't make them any real good. They're 14th right now. They're mediocre against the pass. And if you're looking at Tannehill since he became the starting quarterback for the Tennessee Titans in 2019, I mean, he's been a consistent quarterback 1 in fantasy football. And in the 14 games that he's played with the Titans, has actually accumulated over 3,600 passing yards, 31 touchdowns, so only 6 interceptions, with a little bit of a rushing game to him as well. So if you're talking about Tannehill, I mean, to me, until he proves otherwise, he's a consistent quarterback 1 in fantasy football. So I really like Ryan Tannehill, quarterback 9 on the week, and even that kind of feels low.
Yeah, I mean, we just saw him absolutely shred the Buffalo Bills, and he's doing it with guys out too. Yes, he has A.J. Brown and Jonnu Smith playing at high levels, but Corey Davis was out for that game. So he was throwing to when A.J. Brown wasn't open, which he normally was because he was on Josh Norman a lot of the time. But he had guys like Khalif Raymond and just random guys off the street because the wide receiver core was some of it was on the COVID list with Adam Humphries and Corey Davis being out. I mean, Ryan Tannehill is a top 15 quarterback, top 12 quarterback, whether we like it or not. Yes, we have stigma around him because of his days in Miami, but the way the Titans offense operates, the way Arthur Smith is calling all the play action that he's calling, it's making Tannehill have easy throws, big plays, all this kind of stuff. And as you mentioned, he can run the ball as well. So Ryan Tannehill's a guy who's consistently been in my top 15 quarterbacks, a guy who I had ranked top 15 going into the season as well.
Yeah. No, I mean, we're both on the Tannehill train. We both saw last year, I mean, he was one of the highest graded players overall, according to PFF. I believe he was actually the number 1 ranked quarterback, according to PFF, for the record. So, I mean, obviously don't take your PFF rankings at face value, but it just goes to show, I mean, in terms of efficiency, in terms of pace of play, in terms of overall benefit to the offense. I mean, Ryan Tannehill has really been an elite quarterback since he got to the Titans. Again, that change of scenery was needed from Miami and Adam Gase, but ultimately it's provided the Titans with great quarterback play since they moved on from Mariota. So I really like Ryan Tannehill. So go into your next option, by the way.
Yeah, so I don't have any more guys that I'm higher on than consensus. These are just guys that I'm lower on. So Aaron Rodgers, I have 5 spots lower than consensus. It's not that I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to have a good game. I have him at quarterback 11, which is still a top 12 quarterback. But this is a bottom 6 matchup against the Bucs defense. Could he smash? Sure. But I think the Packers offense struggles a little bit more than they have thus far. If you look at some of the teams that they've played so far, I mean, you got like the Vikings, the Falcons, like just absolutely.
The Saints who haven't been good.
Yeah, cake matchups, right? Like the Bucs are by far and away the best defense that they've played so far. I think this game is going to be a little lower scoring than some people are anticipating. I've heard a lot of predictions. Being that I'm a Bucs fan, I listen to a lot of Bucs media stuff. a lot of people think this is going to be like a 38-32 type game. Like, I don't think it's going to be that high scoring. I think it's going to be kind of like a
24-20.
Yeah, like a 24-20, 27-21 type game or something like that. But yeah, and also I have Matthew Stafford -5 on ECR. I have him at where do I have him? Quarterback 13, where quarterback 8 is where he actually is in consensus. He's only exceeded 20 fantasy points one time so far this season. I just don't think he's safe enough to put in the top 8 where ECR has him right now.
Yeah, no, I fully agree on that. I actually have, according to my rankings, I mean, I have Stafford at 13. That's where you have him as well, right?
Yep.
Stafford at 13. I have Rodgers at, wait. Okay, I was looking at yours for a second. That's why. I have Stafford at 11 and Rodgers at 10. So I'm still lower than like on them compared to the ECR. But anyways, little mumbled speech talking about my guy that I'm kind of lower on. And that's not to take away from this guy because we know how good he's been this season in comparison to expectations. And it's a guy that we could really shout out on the channel because we told y'all Gardner Minshew is a good player. But the reason why I have him 3 spots lower than ECR, I have him at 12, ECR has him at 9. It has mostly to do with the status of DJ Chark. I mean, he's questionable for this game. He got hurt last week. Didn't really look the same after getting hurt again. 3 for 16 type stat line. With him being questionable, to me, that's a huge blow straight up to Minshew's upside. Again, if he misses this game, we saw the way the offense and Minshew looked against Miami on Thursday Night Football. Again, 9.2 fantasy points, no touchdowns, and a pick on that game. Again, it's going to be tough because even if Chark plays, realistically, is he going to play 100% of the snaps? Is he going to be limited? I kind of want to see how that develops before I rank him as a top 10 quarterback for the week. But I have him at 12. I don't think that's particularly low on him, but considering ECR has him at 9, which I didn't really expect, I have to put him here.
I actually have him at 8, so I have him pretty high, and I do think Chark is going to play. That's mainly my reasoning behind it.
Like I can see him being around the ECR rank again, 8 or 9. If we know for sure Chark's going to play 100% of the snap, or not 100% of snaps, but at full go 100%. But until I hear it, I can't really raise him again. If Sunday morning it gets released and he's fine, I could raise him back. But ultimately, with that question mark, kind of drops him behind guys like Tannehill and Kirk Cousins. So yeah, that's just my thoughts.
Yeah, I don't blame you for that. I think he's definitely more volatile than we thought he was going to be. He's not just this volume hog dude that we thought he was going to come. I thought he was going to be coming into the season. Obviously, having Chark makes a big difference because,
for sure,
one, it takes away top corners away from Laviska Shenault and Keelan Cole and all that kind of stuff. But Chark is a big play waiting to happen in his own right. So onto the running back position, you'll see our top be like 36 running backs on the board right now for each of us. One guy that I have significantly higher than consensus is I'm going to go with like mine in order of how much higher I have them than consensus. I have Frank Gore 19 spots higher than consensus. Bell's gone, and Gore is going to receive a huge kind of volume share and a plus matchup against the Dolphins. Do I like it? No, but this is where he's going to finish. He's going to be like a back end RB or a high end RB3, low end RB2, just because he's going to get 15 to 18 carries and maybe a catch or two.
Yeah, I mean, I have him higher as well. Let me see where I currently have Gore. I have him at RB30, so we're kind of both in that area, low end or mid-tier type RB3 for me. So you have him as a high-tier RB3. That's completely plausible given the amount of touches he gets. I kind of want to see how that Jets backfield is going to work. Again, I've heard kind of mixed things. Gore's still going to get his kind of work that he's been doing, while LaMichael Pirine might get more involved. But in reality, losing Bell is ultimately going to give Gore more touches for the long term again. So I definitely think he's a top 30 running back on the week as well. But talking about the opposite of Gore, and that's more of like a fun, exciting guy that we want to succeed. Again, Gore's just kind of going to get you the points. You kind of don't want to watch the game, but it's just going to happen. You got to prepare for it. Guy that may bust or may explode on any given week, in my opinion, especially given the status of another old running back in his situation. I'll be talking about DeAndre Swift, running back from the Detroit Lions. So I currently have him as my RB29 on the week. So 7 spots higher than ECR. And to me, again, I mentioned it in that little intro, but Adrian Peterson did not participate in practice Thursday. So, I mean, that's a status to really monitor going down the stretch going into the weekend. And to me, even if Peterson does play, I do think that Swift actually has the receiving role locked down for the team. Again, we've kind of seen Marvin Jones been inconsistent, hasn't been playing well. He might be dealing with something, to be honest, because he hasn't really looked like the same player whatsoever. So ultimately, I do think that Swift can still give you that 5-6 reception baseline that he's kind of been providing. And obviously, if Peterson misses this game, again, we could really see that DeAndre Swift type breakout game if he's given a more opportunistic role in the offense, especially with Peterson and his 18, 20 carries per game out of that situation for the week. So Swift's really one to monitor given the status of Adrian Peterson, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's completely going to depend on Adrian Peterson playing. If Adrian Peterson plays, Adrian Peterson's going to be my top 30 because Matt Patricia doesn't like to do anything rationally, and he'll just give Adrian Peterson as many carries as he feels like.
I agree.
We'll cast DeAndre Swift aside for the 36-year-old running back that can no longer make anyone miss.
Let's just pick a running back in the top 35 and play a 35-year-old Adrian Peterson who we got off the street over him.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So another guy that I'm higher on, I have Aaron Jones, 6 spots higher than consensus. Obviously, you're not going to be sitting Aaron Jones, but a lot of people are probably tempering expectations for him, knowing that the Bucs' run defense is like elite as can be. But Vita Vea went out Thursday night against the Bears, and he's probably the anchor, probably the best player on that run defense. And not to mention the fact that Aaron Jones is so used as a receiver, and that is actually the biggest kind of downfall of the Bucs defense is that the pass catching running backs, Devin White and Jordan Whitehead, sometimes struggle in coverage to, make those plays and secure the tackles against those guys. So I could see Aaron Jones having a good day receiving. He might not have a super efficient day rushing the ball, but receiving should be enough to have a pretty solid game from him. And then another guy I have higher is Myles Gaskin, who was actually my start of the week on the Start Sit show. The reason being is because he's kind of like a back end RB2 in ECR, and I see him as more of like a mid to high-end RB2 based on his volume that he's getting. He's 5th at the position in targets, 10th in weighted opportunity, 2nd in red zone touches at the running back position. He's 7th in route participation. So, I mean, to me, he's an every week mid to high-end RB2 based on the volume that he's getting.
Yeah, I fully agree. I actually have Gaskin 3 spots higher than consensus as well. And talking about Aaron Jones, it's kind of similar to a guy I'm going to mention in a bit, but plus 60 ECR, I have him at plus 5, so I have him as my RB4 on the week. And you mentioned, again, the Bucs have been susceptible to the pass-catching running back. So going off of Jones, I'm actually going to talk about a similar option. I know he's not in order of how I had them ranked, but just talking about it. Kareem Hunt, 5 spots higher than consensus. He's currently my RB3 on the week, I believe. RB3 on the week. Consensus has him at 8. Yes, the matchup against Pittsburgh is tough. But if you're looking at Hunt as a player, 24 opportunities last week, 16.8 half PPR points in a difficult matchup against the Colts. The Colts are the 3rd best defense against opposing running backs on the season. And last week, Hunt still had a productive day against them. So ultimately, to me, Hunt is just matchup proof with Chubb going down. Again, this is an elite rushing offense. Number 1 graded rushing offense according to PFF in both their offensive line run blocking grades and their running back overall efficiency. So if you're talking about Kareem Hunt, to me, the industry just needs to catch up on Hunt and actually give him the credit that he deserves, in my opinion, as an every week top 5 running back until Nick Chubb comes back. So again, I talked about it last week. Still going with him. Kareem Hunt was my RB3 last week. He's going to be my RB3 again this week.
Yeah, I'm kind of along the same lines. I have Dearness Johnson a bit higher than consensus as well. And I think he's interesting just because we don't know the role of a lot of these other guys in this range, like in the top 36 range. I think you can roll out Dearness Johnson knowing that he is going to have a solid role. And I think like while the Steelers running defense is really good, think about the teams that they've played in terms of the offensive line, the opposing offensive line.
Giants, Texans, Eagles.
Yeah, they played the Giants, Broncos, Ravens. Texans, Eagles. And all those guys have offensive line question marks. The Eagles have so many starters out, like the Texans are just a mess. The Broncos had a bunch of starters out, and they had a rookie center. And the Giants are just a complete dumpster fire of an offensive line. So I like the Browns offensive line. This is a strength on strength. This is great run blocking versus great run defense. We'll see who kind of wins out. I do think the Browns are going to be able to run the ball just based on the scheme that they have and the running talent that they have and the offensive line that they have. It is worth monitoring Wyatt Teller and J.C. Tretter's health, though, because they are both banged up. But either way, I think the Cleveland running game should have a decent day against the Steelers.
Not to mention, I've always kind of said this, but in divisional matchups with 2 teams that absolutely hate each other, yes, you want to take into account ranks going into that game, but at the same time, don't just say, oh, this team is going to shut down this team because of rank. Because in reality, in division games, anything can happen. And if you're looking at Kareem Hunt, for example, the receiving output that he's given you overall, even if he doesn't have a per se efficient rushing day, the overall opportunities and the overall receiving work he should supplement that overall value that he gives. I said overall a lot of times, by the way, but it should supplement the value that he'll ultimately give you this week. So Kareem Hunt, locked and loaded top 5 running back for me. Do you have any other running backs, or should I get into my last 2?
Are they lower on consensus, guys?
Yes.
Yeah.
They're,
Okay. So I'm gonna piss a lot of people off right now.
oh, I'm
I
higher
have
on them, by the way.
they have Jonathan Taylor 14 spots lower than consensus. 14.
Yeah,
So Jonathan Taylor is currently RB4 in consensus,
that's
which
crazy.
absolutely insane to me. Jonathan Taylor is 34th of 37 running backs with 35 attempts in evaded tackles per attempt. So he's not making anyone miss. He's basically running like Jordan Howard at this point. He's number 33 in yards per touch. He has yet to finish as higher than RB14 on the week, despite getting elite volume at the position. Maybe not so much last week, but in general, he's gotten really good volume. So why are we still ranking him top 5? He's not Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb is the best, like in my opinion, the best pure runner in the NFL. Jonathan Taylor is nowhere near that right now. He needs to make people miss. He needs to break some tackles. Like he just is not playing well. So I am not going to rank. If Jonathan Taylor makes me look stupid in a great matchup against Cincinnati, fine, I'll bite the bullet. But until that happens, I'm going to continue to rank Jonathan Taylor as the RB2 that he is, not the RB1.
Yeah, I could definitely see him. I have him lower than consensus as well as my RB10 on the week. So again, I'm not as low as Bush, but I'm much lower than consensus has him. Like RB4 consensus is just ridiculous. But I actually have these last two guys as higher. Like I'm higher than them than according to consensus. And I have to mention Philip Lindsay because yes, I don't think that the consensus rankings have really caught up to the Melvin Gordon news. Obviously on Wednesday, the Melvin Gordon DUI will ultimately impact the value of each of their running back roles
I'm not
going
sure
into
it will,
this
though,
game.
because Melvin Gordon has
He didn't
practiced.
practice today.
Yeah. Oh, he didn't?
Yeah, he didn't practice today.
I swear I saw a thing that
I
said he returned to practice yesterday.
I saw a thing that said he didn't play. Or
I'll check right
we
now.
could
Hold
check
on.
it. Yeah. Uh, just go for that right now. But anyways, we'll wait on that stats real quick. But to me, if Melvin Gordon
Practice yesterday.
did he practice today though? Yeah.
All the news that I have is back at practice yesterday for the Broncos. I believe they said he left practice today with an illness,
Okay, that's
but
probably
like
what
a
I saw.
non-COVID related thing.
All
So
right.
either way, the status of Melvin Gordon is going to impact Philip Lindsay,
Yeah.
obviously, because Philip Lindsay is the direct backup to Melvin Gordon. If Melvin Gordon is out for this game, obviously you play Philip Lindsay as like a top 25 running back.
Yeah, like first of all, if Melvin Gordon is out of this game, Philip Lindsay has to be a top 20 running back in my opinion. If Melvin Gordon, even if Melvin Gordon does play, like Lindsay's still a top 32 fringe, top 32, top 30 type running back, given how shallow the position actually is, and with plenty of upside. Again, that team overall, again, we haven't really seen Melvin Gordon and Philip Lindsay operate as the 1-2 yet because Lindsay's been hurt. But we did see a little bit in week 1 before Lindsay exited. I mean, he was still pretty efficient, 7 carries, about 30 yards. I mean, he was getting touches regardless before he went out. So ultimately, I kind of want to see how that situation plays out. And I just think 37 is kind of limiting the overall potential upside that Lindsay could provide you this week. So I'm at 18 spots higher, given that I was going into that with the presumptive thought that Melvin Gordon missed practice. But even if he does play this week, I still think that Lindsay is a top 30 running back. So it'll constitute me having him higher, at least 7 spots higher than consensus. So that's my thoughts on that. And the guy I'm going to mention next is also
I'm going to disagree with you here.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm going to mention Cam Akers. The reason why, because he's currently at, let me check right here. He's currently RB 33. The reason why I have him at 25, again, he was the most efficient running back on the team last week. Yes, he's still lower than Darrell Henderson for me on my rankings. Darrell Henderson's actually at 22. I have Cam Akers at 25. But if you're looking at last week in terms of efficiency, 9 touches, 61 yards, and ultimately had a 46-yard scamper coming off that rib injury. So overall, looking at it, Sean McVay mentioned he does want to get him more involved. We're talking about overall looking at it as a player. He looked much better, much more efficient than Malcolm Brown did last week. So ultimately, maybe ranking him at 25 is being a little bit optimistic. I still do think this is going to be a committee. But if Cam Akers keeps playing as efficiently as he has been, I just don't see any way that he's not going to be getting a bump or a tick in overall opportunities. So that's my thoughts on Cam Akers.
Oh, I agree with you. I think if he continues to play efficiently, he will continue to see a bump in volume, but he hasn't seen a bump in volume yet. So sure. I have him I actually have him higher than ECR as well, which I'm kind of surprised.
Where do you have him?
But I have him at.
He's my 25 right now.
I have him at 29. So he is higher than ECR in my rankings as well. But I do think the only reason I have him there is because I think he's going to have like a 10 to 12 touch role. And maybe he can get into the end zone or something to help him get into that top 30 range. But I'm not really buying any of these guys in this backfield. I don't want anything to do with it. Darrell Henderson is the guy I would start if I had to start one. Cam Akers is the guy I would stash if I had to stash one, but I'm not really comfortable playing any of them if I can help.
The reason why he's even as high as 25 is because if you look at the running backs, he's kind of in a range with
now.
I
know. It's gross.
I mean, Devontae Freeman, Mark Ingram.
I would rather play Devontae Freeman over him.
I don't even know if I would, to be honest.
Devontae Freeman got like 20 touches last week.
He playing against the Cowboys. He goes against a football team who should have a better run defense.
No, I know. The football team have actually been a run funnel defense thus far this season. For whatever reason, they're really good against the pass. But Devontae Freeman has a guaranteed role. Cam Akers does not, which means I would rather play Devontae Freeman, as gross as that sounds.
That's fair. Talking about, is there any other running backs you have here, or should we go on to receivers? All right, we're going to go on to receivers. So take it away. Who's the first receiver that you have higher or lower than consensus, whatever you want to start with?
All right, so I actually have okay, I'm on yours. Hold on. All right, so on the screen right now, you'll kind of see both of our rankings, but I have Godwin 50 spots higher than consensus. Again, I think that's ECR needs to catch up and put him in, obviously, because he is going to play in this game. It's Bruce Arians has said nothing, but he's expecting him to play. His hamstring's fine. He's practicing in a limited fashion, but he should get it a full participation today and be good to go for Sunday. Chris Godwin, I'll pair him with Mike Evans right now because I have Mike Evans 6 spots lower than consensus. And Evans is going up against Jair Alexander this week in shadow coverage 100%.
Yep.
He's PFF's number 1 graded corner right now. So whatever you think of PFF, he's played well. Evans has a big size advantage over Jair Alexander, who's like a 5'10" corner, but Jair seems like the type of guy that can
He's just sticky.
That's a way exactly, and he's scrappy. So he's going to stick on Evans, and they might avoid throwing at Alexander as a result. So I think this is a Chris Godwin game. I think Chris Godwin, if of these two guys, I would rather start Godwin, even though he's coming off of an injury.
Yeah, no, I agree there. And talking about my guy, I mean, it's Davante Adams. I have him 3 spots higher than consensus. My reasoning why Davante Adams is in the top 3 is because it's pretty simple. If Davante Adams plays, Davante Adams is a top 3 receiver. Yes, the matchup against Tampa Bay on paper, as you know, Carlton Davis has been playing really well this year thus far. Kind of had a hiccup last week against the Allen Robinsons of the world, but Davante Adams
was usage related, not play related.
Yeah, I mean, Davante Adams is a better Allen Robinson. So if you're actually looking at it, yes, the matchup on paper, Carlton Davis has played well, but ultimately, Davante Adams is still one of the top 5 receivers in the NFL on talent. And in terms of overall volume that he should be seeing in this game, again, Valdez-Scantling has one of the worst matchups according to PFF. He's actually at negative 46% against
Jamel Dean or whoever, Bunting, Jamel Dean, whoever is going to be on Valdez-Scantling is going to give him problems.
So we mentioned this is going to be pass funneled in terms of to obviously Davante Adams. You mentioned Aaron Jones earlier, and then I'm going to mention a little bit of Robert Tonyan after. But it's simple. Davante Adams plays. Davante Adams is top 3 because his volume is pretty much unparalleled with Michael Thomas being out. I mean, only paralleled by DeAndre Hopkins, we'll say. But yeah.
And another guy I have higher than consensus, I have Tyler Boyd 5 spots higher than consensus right now. Both of the other 2 Cincinnati receivers have a negative advantage or a disadvantage, would be a better way of saying that, per PFF. And Boyd has a 27% advantage against Kenny Moore. And I think, the Colts front has been pretty fierce so far this season. I think Joe Burrow is going to have to make some quick decisions, which we saw against Baltimore. Didn't really go too well. But I think Boyd is able to get a lot of targets in this game, and they're probably going to at least move the sticks with Boyd. So if you're in any kind of PPR league, I think Boyd is a top 16 play like he usually is.
I fully agree. I mean, you took the words right out of my mouth. I have him 9 spots higher than consensus. He's currently my wide receiver 15 on the week. And it's simple. I mean, it's Joe Burrow's number 1 target on the league's 2nd highest paced offense. I mean, it's just crazy to me that ECR has him ranked outside of the top 20 right now. He's ECR's wide receiver 24. Like, why? He's been good. He's been consistent. He's been the top option for Burrow. And as you mentioned, again, yes, Kenny Moore has played well this year, but Tyler Boyd is expected to have a 27% advantage against him in the slot this week. So fire up your Tyler Boyd. I still think he's going to bounce back from that last week's production where he was a little disappointing. Sorry, I don't know why I said last week, but yeah, go with Tyler Boyd. Feel confident he is a consistent wide receiver 2 until he proves otherwise.
Yeah. Do you have any other advantages at receiver?
Not talking about just specifically advantages, but or guys I have higher.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Okay. I'm going to talk about A.J. Brown. And the reason why I'm going to talk about A.J. Brown is because I have him pretty aggressively above where his current ECR is. So I have him as the wide receiver 8 on the week. And I mean, last week coming back from his injury, obviously the what was it, shin bruise, and the Titans going through a bunch of the COVID stuff last week, but 7 for 82 and a touchdown in his first game back against the Bills. So if you're looking at it, while Houston has been solid against receivers this year, I mean, the volume for Brown with Corey Davis on the COVID list is undeniable. We've seen that connection grow between him and Tannehill. Again, this guy returns one first week back after an injury and just puts up 7 for 82 like it's nothing. Ultimately, yes, the matchup is tough, but Brown is the type of player who on any given play can just win you a fantasy football week. So I love A.J. Brown. I mean, he's a top 10 receiver for me given the usage he's ultimately seen. Again, the main thing from last year was, his efficiency's got to go down. He's too efficient, not enough volume, yada, yada, yada. And this year, I mean, what's been the case? He's gotten 8 targets first week, 9 targets last week. I mean, he's just going to be the consistent wide receiver 1 for this offense, and they've been playing extremely well. So I love A.J. Brown. Going forward, he's probably going to be at minimum a top 12 receiver option for me on any given week.
Yeah, he was actually limited in terms of snaps last week too, and he still performed. So I have no concerns with AJ Brown going forward. Another guy I have from the same draft class, a bit higher than consensus, Deebo Samuel. I have 6 spots higher. So I guess I was a bit wrong last week when I said to play him because he's going to be back to full strength. 63% route participation over the last 2 weeks. He's still working back into the lineup, and I think he becomes a full-time player this week. This is a tough matchup for him, though, going up against – I mean, he's not going to go up against Jalen Ramsey in shadow coverage, I don't imagine, because Deebo's moved around a lot. But I still think this is a tough matchup against the Rams defense. It's been pretty fierce so far this season. But he's just so low on consensus right now. Like, he's in, like, the 40s. Like, I don't agree with that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. Talking about my next guy, finally. Again, I also, for the record, have Deebo at 33 or 34, I believe. It's not going to show on the screen, but talking about my next kind of guy I'm higher on than consensus. And obviously this really has to do with Cam Newton one, and that's going to be Julian Edelman. Have him 9 spots higher than consensus. Obviously, if this game is not played, you do not start Julian Edelman. But if this game is played, I mean, the reason why Julian Edelman's 9 spots higher than consensus because Cam's back. If Cam is back, Julian Edelman is going to be his number 1 target. I'm not worried about how Julian Edelman played with freaking Brian Hoyer and Jared Stidham slinging him the rock the last time we saw him on the field. Like, Julian Edelman is going to be fine if Cam's back. So that's my thoughts on Julian Edelman. Talking about guys that you're lower on, I got a few here, but what is your first guy?
Yeah, 2 guys that I believe we're both lower on. I have Terry McLaurin, 10 spots lower than consensus, and Hollywood Brown, 15 spots lower than consensus. And the reason is because of the corners they're going up against. James Bradbury is going to shadow Terry McLaurin. James Bradbury's absolutely shut down the likes of Amari Cooper, Allen Robinson, Deontay Johnson, like a lot of guys this season. I don't want anything to do with him if I can help it. Obviously, Terry McLaurin is it's still a top 24 option for me because he's Terry McLaurin and he's a great real-life NFL receiver and he gets a lot of volume. But he definitely does see a big downgrade this week against James Bradbury. And then Hollywood Brown, if you have better options, I would actually be willing to sit him this week because, again, likewise with James Bradbury, Darius Slay has been excellent this season. He's been absolutely clamps, and Hollywood in general has been inconsistent himself. And I think this is a game you could sit him for a guy like Laviska Shenault, Justin Jefferson, Jamison Crowder. If you have any of those options, I would rather play them over Hollywood Brown.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. Again, as you mentioned, Terry McLaurin, I have 8 spots lower than consensus, and I have Marquise Brown 8 spots lower than consensus, so both 8. Talking about a guy I'm also lower on, it's going to be, it pains me because this is one of my guys. It's DJ Moore, wide receiver from the Carolina Panthers. I mean, I have him 7 spots lower than consensus. Consensus still has him at 20. He's my wide receiver 27. Again, I mentioned the reason why this pains me is because the usage that he has seen in comparison to what I anticipated him to see has ultimately been so disappointing. I mean, they're basically using DJ Moore in the Robbie Anderson type role that we're accustomed to, whereas Robbie Anderson has kind of been playing that Michael Thomas role we expected DJ Moore to step into. Why Robbie Anderson is being used as that consistent target hog across the middle while DJ Moore is being just used as a deep threat, who knows? But, man, we can't fault for the mirage anymore. DJ Moore deserves to be ranked lower than Robbie Anderson because Robbie Anderson is the wide receiver 1 in Carolina.
Yeah, I agree. I have DJ Moore actually lower than you do. And DJ Moore has 2 receptions, 4 receptions, and 4 receptions over the last 3 weeks. So, yeah, I agree. You cannot rank this guy as a top 20 receiver like ECR continues to do.
Yeah. It pains me because
Yeah.
you
Oh,
can do
yeah. To me too. I have a lot of DJ Moore. I actually did trade him in one of my leagues. I'm glad I did so because had he not taken a slant to the house last week, he would have busted again.
Yeah.
So, Gary Slayton is another guy I have lower than consensus. I have him 11 spots lower. Washington, as I mentioned, has been a bottom 5 matchup against fantasy wide receivers. They've actually been very good. It's not necessarily, I don't really know what it is, not necessarily their corners or whatever, but the pace of the games are usually slow. It's usually not a lot of passing that happens. Like they're just usually slugfest games. And on top of this, let's not pretend like the Giants are just going to go in and buck a trend of a team being good against receivers. The Giants have been an awful offense.
Agreed. And talking about the final guy I'm kind of lower on, it's going to be Odell Beckham, 5 spots lower than consensus. This hasn't really anything to do, like on paper, people might say, oh yeah, this because he's playing Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's actually not really been that great against the pass thus far, to be honest, compared to expectation. This has to do with Odell Beckham, the player himself. The volatility you get in your lineup by playing Odell Beckham on a week-to-week basis is just ultimately going to be too great to have anything more than wide receiver 23, 24 type expectations on a weekly basis. I mean, he had 1 week, yes, 38 points against my Dallas Cowboys. We know that. Aside from that, he's been so inconsistent this year. Ultimately, if you're playing him, as I mentioned, anything more than a high-end wide receiver 3, low-end wide receiver 2, you're just wasting your time there because Odell Beckham ain't it.
Yeah, I agree. Odell Beckham was a sell high when that happened, and we're going to continue to say it because the target volume isn't there. The consistency of the quarterback play isn't there. The fact that the offense is so run heavy isn't there. Like you just don't want to be attached to a situation like Cleveland's passing offense. Like the rushing offense, yeah, absolutely. But is that it on the running back or the receivers?
Yep.
You want to get into tight ends real quick?
Let's get into tight ends. Definitely a fun position this year because, I mean, you got like a top 5, which is well known. Then you got like 3 more, which is,
Who's the fifth guy in that top 5 for you? Just out of curiosity.
Okay, it'd be a top 4 then because it says Ertz here, but I wouldn't put Ertz nearly in the tier of the top 4.
I mean, who's on bye this week? Isn't there someone good on bye?
Oh,
Darren Waller. Darren Waller.
That's it. Okay, yeah. That's the guy I'm
fine.
forgetting. I was gonna say, I'm like, yeah, there's one guy I was missing, but
Yeah.
Man, for the record, nice little shout there with the top 5 because jonnu Smith to me is going to be the 3 moving
Johnny
forward.
Smith's the tight end 1 on the season right now.
Yeah, he's gonna be 3 for me after Kittle and Kelsey for basically the rest of my season. Because I mean, the volume we've seen, the touchdowns we've been seeing. I mean, he's basically Mark Andrews with more volume. So
I don't want to say I actually uttered the words, who is this year's Mark Andrews? It's Jonnu Smith, but I said it multiple times in the offseason. So I've had a lot of people so far this season, the most commented player being like, thank you on this player was Jonnu Smith.
Yeah.
Because both me and Danny told you guys.
We both had him as top 7.
Also uttered phrases like his breakout is so fucking obvious because it was.
I remember.
Speaking of tight ends and tight end breakouts, I'm going to just quickly run through 3 guys I have higher than consensus. I have Mike Gesicki 6 spots higher than consensus right now. It's a great matchup. Gesicki's bad games have come in bad matchups, predictably, and his good games have come in good matchups. He has a good matchup. I'm willing to play him pretty highly. Jimmy Graham, for whatever reason, I have him 5 spots higher than consensus. It's the year 2020. Shit's happening. Averaging 7 targets per game and a touchdown per game since Foles took over. So, I mean, Jimmy Graham is being featured by Nick Foles. Maybe it's the narrative that he loves his tight ends. Maybe Jimmy Graham's just more comfortable in Chicago. I don't know what it is, but he's playing well. Darren Fells, I have at tight end 19, 6 spots higher than consensus. The reason is because the last 2 weeks, he's played over 80% of the snaps when previously it was Jordan Akins doing that. And Jordan Akins' snap shares went down significantly. So, and Darren Fells is a great red zone option if you just need to throw a guy in your lineup, hope for a touchdown. He's the type of guy that can do that.
I fully agree. I have as my guys I'm higher on. Gesicki 4 spots ahead of consensus. Higbee 5 spots ahead of consensus. And Darren Fells +6 according to consensus. For the record, I also would have Jimmy Graham as a fringe top 10 tight end. Ultimately, I forgot to that's one name I kind of glanced over when I was making my rankings adjustments. So it says 13 right now, but if you're talking off the eyes, I'd probably have him at 10 right ahead of Gronk. But talking about Gronk, I have him currently 6 spots ahead of consensus. Well, he would be 5 because I'd move him to 11. But at 10 or so on, I mean, as you guys can kind of see, I mean, tight ends just become a mosh pit. So I'm kind of willing to take the risk on Gronk here again. You mentioned the tough matchup that Evans is playing going up against Jair Alexander. Chris Godwin is coming off of injury, so we don't necessarily know if he's going to be the same Chris Godwin first week back. Scotty Miller disappointed last week. Yes, Tyler Johnson, we did see a flash from pan of him. Do we really expect him to be a consistent figure on the offense? To me here, if Gronk's getting 6, 7 targets this week.
Yeah, and he's gotten 6 or more targets in 2 of the last 3 games since Howard's been injured. So, I mean, he's worth a shot. He's like a better version of Darren Fells. You just
Yeah,
hope for a touchdown with him, and he'll probably catch 3 or 4 balls as well.
100%. I mean, you mentioned Darren Fells. I actually think we both have him ranked at the same ranking. What, 19?
Yep.
Yep. So we're both on that. But I'm gonna mention a guy that I'm lower on, and then you can get
Quickly
into
on
your guy.
Higbee, you mentioned Higbee. I have him 4 spots higher than consensus as well. And the
Yeah.
reason is because in the non-Jets and Giants games that the Niners have played thus far, they've allowed 24, 25, and 42 points.
Yeah.
Their defense is decimated with injury. Their secondary had a guy that got beat, like absolutely beat by like a drum against Preston Williams last week. I just think this team is going to give up a lot of points, and I think the Rams are ready to kind of throw up a lot of points because they haven't really done so in the past couple of weeks.
Fully agree. Going into my last guy that I have one guy that I'm really lower on here. And man, it's just me admitting L's today because we're talking about how much of a big dub Jonnu Smith was from the little My Guys video. Well, Hayden Hurst is the opposite. The offense has.
But to be fair, we did tell people to draft both of them.
Yeah.
So that one would work.
Man, but the offense just isn't nearly as good as we thought it would be. I mean, we were thinking this would be a high-scoring, 30-point per game offense, 700 pass attempts, locked and loaded, it's ready to go. But, man, it's just been putrid. Matt Ryan's been playing awful. Team has looked not good. I mean, Julio Jones been banged up. To me, while I thought Hurst was going to be a top 6, 7 tight end, consistent week to week for the season, man, he's a volatile tight end too. I mean, he's going to have his weeks every now and then where he gets like, 6 for 70, maybe a touchdown every now and then. But there's just so much volatility going on with Hurst, both due to the play of the overall offense, due to the play of Matt Ryan, and frankly, due to the play of himself. I mean, that team is just a mess to watch. It pains me because I really loved Hurst going into the season, but he's a tight end too, guys. We just have to admit our defeats when they appear in front of us.
Yeah, and if I went back to the summer and told you that Julio Jones was going to be banged up and out for these games, we would have thought Hayden Hurst was going to be a top 8 tight end for sure.
Yeah.
And Julio Jones has been out and Hayden Hurst is still not producing. So, yeah, I think it is the offense. Our only hope going forward is maybe they're rejuvenated with the firing of Dan Quinn, which I don't think is likely because I don't think he was like a hated coach or anything. Like if once the Jets fire Adam Gase, maybe they have a little renaissance. But either way, I totally agree with you on Hayden Hurst. He's my tight end 16, and that's probably going to be the range that he's kind of always in going forward. Another guy that deserves to be in that range, Evan Ingram. Do something, and then I'll rank you higher. That's basically all I have written down for him. He had a rushing touchdown last week. Cool. He still only had like 2 targets. Like I don't care about Evan Ingram. I like you have to play better. That's literally all you have to do, and then I'll rank you higher. Your offense sucks. Your quarterback's playing like crap, and you're playing like crap. So I don't want to rank Evan Ingram. I don't want to count on Evan Ingram as my tight end 1. If you're in a shallow league, drop him. If you're in a 12-team league, I probably wouldn't drop him because you probably don't have a better option. But, I mean, he's just not a great option. He's not nearly as good as we thought he was going to be. I don't know whether he's hurt or, like, what's going on.
How does ECR still have him at 7?
I have no idea.
I don't get that. But, yeah, we were kind of talking about Darren Fells earlier. Let me just add a little bit on him because the thing with Houston is what we've known from the past is that they don't target the running back position. They don't target the tight end position.
Dante Johnson has been rolled out for the game against the Browns. Just
fire up Chase Claypool.
Yeah, fire up Chase Claypool and Juju Smith-Schuster.
Yes. Talking about it, though, I mean, again, I mentioned Houston hasn't really been a tight end running back funnel of an offense. But, man, tight end position has been seeing 18% of targets this year in terms of target market share. So that's definitely more than we anticipated. And we kind of saw with Jordan Akins when he played, he was getting a good amount of volume. And with Akins, obviously, he's been out with the concussion. I mean, Fells, as you mentioned, 80+% snaps for the last 2 weeks. So he could be a sneaky, like, I don't know, if you're talking about a tournament play, hypothetically in DFS, and you're going super cheap on the tight end position, I mean, I consider him to have potential top 12 type upside if he scores.
So, yeah, if all he really needs to do is score to finish as a top 12 tight end. So, and
for sure.
We saw him do it last week.
For sure. Yeah, he's been playing well.
Yeah. All right. So is that it?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. So if you guys enjoyed this video, hit the button that looks like this. If you guys saw me blow my nose or cough several times throughout this video, make sure you, I don't know, maybe wish me well in the comments. I don't know. Anything to help the YouTube algorithm. If you want to say, hey, Corey, I saw you fucking cough 10 times during the video, then, someone can keep track of that. But anyway,
also,
as always, guys, make sure you guys join the Discord to get familiar with our community. If you want to support the show financially, you can do so patreon.com/fantasy stock exchange. Peace out, guys. We will see you Sunday for the live stream.
Take it easy, y'all. And if you made it this far, 1 second, wish me luck on that grade on my accounting exam. But aside from that, we will see you guys Sunday morning live stream. As always, take it easy, y'all.